my private jet. It's called United Airlines. And
Love it.
you, of course, have to pay for your own seat, but we would love to have you. Just things are a little locked down in terms of travel right now. So let's not put off enjoying a couple bottles together, but we will get these folks out to the winery at some point and open some other bottles as well. So there you go.
Great. So before we kick it off, again, I'm so happy that you were able to join us tonight, John. We're really excited. We know that we have a lot of wine enthusiasts here in New Hampshire. So having you join us has just going to be great. So I'm going to pass it off to you to get started. I know we have a great presentation that I will go ahead and share for everyone. Just let me know that you can see it okay.
Oh, pictures.
All right. And is it displaying properly? Or are you seeing the full screen?
I am. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Great. And it kind of looks like today, actually, although this, I don't think was taken today, but it is a beautiful autumn day here. A little more color in the background. I was going to brag about our weather out in the Napa Valley, but it doesn't sound like you guys are having a bad day in New Hampshire. Not a wintry cold.
It did warm up a little bit. Yeah, it did warm up. I was really surprised.
So yeah, but it's a beautiful fall day here. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I've started drinking, and that's the only thing I ask of all of you is that I'm not comfortable speaking to people who aren't drinking. And so please, I hope you've got a glass of something, hopefully Frog's Leap, but anything will do. And let's have a glass of wine together and talk about Frog's Leap and all that's going on out here. It's been quite a year for all of us, to say the least. And so lots to talk about. It's great to be here with Lisa. Lisa and I go back a long way. So Lisa, thank you for joining in the discussion tonight. And also want to thank all my Martinetti friends. Colin's here, our portfolio manager, but I think a few other people from Martinetti are on the line as well. So I know they're drinking at least. So that's all good. And so we're going to share a few photographs of Frog's Leap for any of you who've not been here. I know many of you have been, and I'm already seeing messages coming across about what you're drinking. So that's pretty cool. Someone's got a bottle of 97 Cab open. Colin says he's got an older Chardonnay. I want to hear your experiences as the night goes on. And so welcome, and let's have some fun together. Anyone who doesn't know Frog's Leap, we're a family winery. I started the winery back 41 years ago. It doesn't seem possible that it's been this long. But we still remain a family winery. We farm about 200 acres of grapes. And so that, that gives us about 800 to 1,000 tons of grapes each year. So we make somewhere between 50 and 60,000 cases of wine each year. So more than we can drink ourselves, which is why we like to connect with the folks in New Hampshire who drink a lot, by the way. And and we sell our wine all over the world, and it's just been a great and wonderful way to spend my life. I'm still the winemaker, but second generation's moving in, and we're having lots of fun here. I didn't grow up in winemaking at all. I grew up actually back east in Western New York State. Chautauqua County is a little corner of New York over by Lake Erie, as far as you can go before you fall into the lake. I grew up on my family's dairy farm. So a little connection with the Northeast there. I went to Cornell University to learn how to milk cows better in the early 70s. And soon enough ran out of money. If you know anything about dairy farming, my family didn't have a lot of money. And so I was going to leave school to make more money. And instead, the university suggested a program, work-study program, where you could work and get credit at the same time. And I said, well, that sounds good. What have you got? Well, the only thing they had was the job at a winery, the Taylor Wine Company. This is back in the 70s. This is back when they were making Catawba and Concord and so on. And I had never had a glass of wine in my life. My family didn't drink. But I swear to God, you guys, I walked into this winery and there were his big, huge tanks of booze and pretty girls giving tours and not a cow in sight. And I go, this is what I'm doing the rest of my life. And so that rapidly became my focus in life. And of course, think about it, the 70s are just when the whole California wine industry was starting to happen again. This guy, Robert Mondavi, had started the first new winery after Prohibition in 1966. So this was just starting to happen out in Napa. I was starting to hear about the great wines out here. So literally when I graduated from Cornell, I think I graduated in 1975, I got the $69 Ameripass on the Greyhound bus and I headed to California. I had $40 left in my pocket when I got out there. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have a job and I didn't have a place to stay. And I said, how hard can this be? And, now almost 50 years later, I am here and I'm $22 million in debt. It's going real good. We're having lots of fun. It's been a crazy and wonderful time, to say the least. So Frog's Leap is right in the middle of the Napa Valley in the little town of Rutherford, over more towards the Silverado Trail site on the Rutherford Crossroad. And you see there the picture of our beautiful old red barn. That barn actually, which probably looks familiar to the people in New Hampshire, these old barns, that was actually built as a winery in 1884. Believe it or not, there were 160 wineries in the Napa Valley in the 1880s and 1890s, trying to satisfy the business of Europe, which had had a devastating root disease called phylloxera. And so Europe was out of wine. So people emigrated all over the world, including California, to make wine to send back to Europe. And the fellow who started this winery back in 1884, Christian Adamson, was he was German. He made all of his wine and shipped it back to Germany. But the problem was they had brought their cuttings with them from Europe and they brought the disease here. And so all these wineries, or virtually all these wineries, were wiped out in the 1880s and 1890s. The Red Barn, the Adamson Winery, went out of business in 1896. And so now what these wineries are called the ghost wineries of the Napa Valley. And many of them are being repurposed as homes and so on. The wooden ones, for the most part, are gone. This is actually the oldest wooden winery left in the Napa Valley. And that's where we actually, all our tanks are where we ferment our wine. You kind of see in the background there, another building, that's our barrel building. And then that little gray building over to the side is I'm sitting right in that one window there. Hi, wave to me. And that's our offices and where we greet our visitors. And so Frog's Leap, that's who we are. It's been a wild ride over the many, many years. I think the things that, and hopefully you guys, some of you have got a little bit of this Sauvignon Blanc. Shout out to me if you have a little bit of our Sauvignon Blanc. It's the first wine I'm trying tonight, our 19 Sauvignon Blanc, and is actually the signature wine of Frog's Leap. We make more of this than anything else, and we drink more of it than anything else. We absolutely love this wine. So I got a question. Of course, I'm not good at this. Someone said, where did the name come from? Well, I have to complete my story is that, when I got out here, I had the address of this guy who I knew his sister, Helen, at Cornell. She was in my wine tasting group. And she said, I think my brother has a place. He just bought a place out there. I don't think he lives in it. It's not habitable, but why don't you go up there and see if you run into him? And so I hitchhiked up there and he wasn't there. And the place was abandoned and it had no water or bathrooms or anything, but it looked like a perfect place to stay, given my limited funds. And so I camped there. Well, he rolls in on his motorcycle the next morning, this big guy, 6'6", beard, leathers. What the hell are you doing on my property? And fortunately, I had a bottle of wine in the tent with me, and we drank that and two others and decided to start a winery together. Well, Larry's place, we started fixing up and discovered that it had been a frog raising farm. They actually raised frogs here for restaurants back in the 1800s. And we thought that was funnier than hell. And so we started calling the place the Frog Farm. Well, Larry had some friends who were bottling their first wine. He had gone to college, St. John's College with them. And so he recommended them to me as to be help on the bottling line. And so I became the first employee of Stag's Leap Wine Cellars. And the wine we bottled on my first day on the job was the famous 73 Cabernet Sauvignon that went on to win the Paris tasting. And so just the serendipity. So I was the winemaker of record at Stag's Leap in 1975 and 76 while I was going to school at Davis to get my degree in winemaking. Well, we snipped a few grapes from Stag's Leap to make a 5-gallon jug of wine at the Frog Farm. We drank 4 of the 5 gallons one night. And in honor of the Frog Farm and Stag's Leap, someone coined the name Frog's Leap. How we remembered it, I have no idea. The next day, we were all hungover, but Frog's Leap became the official name of our homemade wine. And then when we decided to start to make a little wine commercially, we just couldn't let it go. We thought it was so fun. And so we started calling it Frog's Leap. I think if we'd had any idea that it was going to become what it eventually became, we wouldn't have picked such a silly name. but it's our name now, and we live with it, and we love it, and it stands in for who we are. We deeply appreciate great wine, but we don't take ourselves so seriously that we have to have our pinkies up every time we taste a glass. And so that's Frog Sleep. So a lot of people say, how did you get that name? And I said, we've been drinking, which is pretty much true of most of the things we've done around Frog Sleep. Several years later, Larry and I, so we started the winery together. I started the winery by selling my motorcycle. I saw a question earlier, do I still ride motorcycles? I owe so much money to the bank now, they won't let me ride motorcycles. But I sold my motorcycle, and we made our first wine in 1981. So that's the founding year. Larry and I ran it together for about a dozen years. And then we started a second winery called Turley. And then we split into two so we could each have our own winery. So that's when we moved over to this beautiful red barn, which wasn't beautiful when we bought it. It had nearly fallen over. All those vineyards you see were dead. And it was essentially a toxic waste dump. And I said, this is perfect. So we moved in and we straightened up the barn, replanted the vineyards, planted a few posies, built a couple new buildings, and this became our farm. This is a great picture. That's actually my son, Rory, who runs all of our vineyard operations now, which is a big job, 200 acres of grapes. We farm a few for a couple growers as well. And we have a lot of fun. I think if you know one thing about Frog Leap, you need to know that we were early advocates of organic growing. And I'll talk a little bit about what that means. So we certified our winery organic 32 years ago, which, as I mentioned, was the first in Napa to go organic. I think third in the state of California. So very early in the game on organics. We believe deeply in it. And it's just been our way of farming for so many years. And it has a very distinct impact on our style of wine, which we'll talk about in just a second. The other thing that you might see there, although it's kind of covered up, is that no irrigation lines. We dry farm all of our vineyards as well, meaning we don't irrigate the grapes. And we think that has a profound influence on our wines as well. And we'll talk about that. That's
John, this might be a better picture to show the
that's us farming organically. You have to put your organic matter back into the soil. That's our fertilizer right there instead of bag fertilizer. So that gets turned into the ground along with compost, and that's the food for the soil. A lot of people don't know what organic farming is, but it's a natural-based soil fertility method. So it's the idea of adding food back into the soil. There's what's called the law of return. If you take from the soil, which we do when we harvest a crop, if you take from the soil, you must return to the soil in equal measure or greater measure if you can. And that's the principle of organic farming, is to enliven this rich biological world of the soil. And that's what a healthy soil produces, a healthy plant. And a healthy plant, like a healthy person, naturally resists disease. So organic farming isn't so much about not using chemicals. It's very much about not needing chemicals, kind of like our own health. If we balance diet and exercise and don't burn the candle on all three ends, then we don't get so sick. And so we don't need all the antibiotics and steroids and all the things you see advertised on TV. So it's really, that's the principle of organic growing. And it's fundamental, like I said, to the way we do it. Yeah.
John,
yes.
We actually have a question in the Zoom chat. It looks like someone was actually wondering, because this is kind of against the norm of the typical wine industry, how you found yourself, doing this organic method of, creating your wine.
Yeah, when you're the first to do things, you find out a lot of things. But we rapidly realized that just doing it ourselves was not going to be of any value. We needed to encourage our neighbors to do the same. So we started the first organic farming school, as far as I know, for wine grapes in the country in 1990. Our consultant, amigo Bob Contasano, started this little school with us, and 9 people showed up. And the next year it was 15 people. And now we limit the attendance to 250 people each year. And the result of this has been so many farms now, or there are more organic vineyards in Napa County than any other county in California. And we're very proud of that, because, you can do these things in a vacuum and it doesn't make a difference. But when you can share that with others, and we're trying to do that with dry farming right now as well. They're trying to convince people to farm without irrigation. Ironically, that's when I got to the Napa Valley in 1975. There were no irrigated vineyards in Napa. It's a relatively new thing. The first irrigated vines came in 1976. It became popular because of greater yields, but then that decreased the quality. And so, but now they're kind of hooked on that. I'd say probably 97% of vineyards in Napa are irrigated. And we don't think that that's beneficial for wine quality. And we'll talk about that in a little bit if we get to it. Irrigation is not allowed in any of the other great wine growing regions of the world. So you think of France or Italy or Spain or Portugal or Germany. Those are not allowed to be irrigated. And so it's not necessary in Napa. And so we don't think it should. We think people would make better wine without it, to be honest with you. Yeah. My dog is barking to be let into my office. I'm just going to open the door here a second. I'll be right back, everyone. Yeah. Oh, there she is. Come on in, Sadie. I know you don't like to miss a Zoom call, do you? Well, how's everyone doing? I'm enjoying my Sauvignon Blanc here. I feel like I'm talking like a Dutch uncle, but you keep the questions coming, everyone. I'm going to pour myself a little bit of Chardonnay as well. And I don't know if anyone's got the Chardonnay, but it's our Chardonnay. This is what's available in New Hampshire right now is our Shale and Stone Chardonnay. I've got the 2018 vintage. And it's not for people who like the big oaky, sweet, butter balmy sort of Chardonnay. This is it says right on our label on all of our wines, balance, restraint, and respect for the natural expression of the vine. And what we mean by that is that a wine has got to have a nice acidity balance. It should not have a lot of anything. It needs to be restrained. And then this idea that the wine reflects the soil and the place that it's coming from is fundamental to, I think, what great wines mean and fundamental to what we believe in at Frog's Leap. All those things, by the way, are conveyed to wine through the way you farm them. So that's why dry farming and biodynamic farming and organic farming and regenerative organics and all these things that we're doing, which are also good for the environment and et cetera. But they're really, the main reason we do them is that it makes better wine. So this Chardonnay, it's actually, I hope someone's got a few glass out there. The question is it more of a Chablis or Montrachet style? And that begs an interesting question because, in Napa, it seems like winemakers either go down two directions. They make the big kind of oaky Chardonnays. I call them tropical fruit flavored pancake syrups. They're sweet and heavy and oaky, and they're very popular and people love them. And a lot of people make a lot of money making those. And I certainly don't. If that's the kind of Chardonnay you love, I have no problem with that. It's just not our kind of Chardonnay. I think the other kind are what I would call faux Burgundy, people who are trying to replicate what is done with Chardonnay in Burgundy, which would be either a Chablis on the more acidic end of things, down to Meursault or Puny Montrachet, or even Montrachet or Sauvignon or Bâtard. These are styles that we all are, of course, as winemakers, enamored with. And so for a lot of us, it was trying to copy what they did with Burgundy. And God knows I went down this path myself. I spent hours and hours over in Burgundy, not the worst thing to do, trying to replicate what they were doing there to try to make, I was going to make Puny Montrachet in the Napa Valley. But as you get older and wiser as a winemaker, you realize that trying to imitate someone else's style does not in fact work. And so even as I was doing everything they did in Burgundy, my wines did not taste like Puny Montrachet. First of all, if you put Napa in Europe, it'd be below Barcelona, Spain. So, our latitude gives us the challenges as well. So I started asking the question, well, what do I love about a good Puny Montrachet? The acidity, the freshness, the lack of weight, this beautiful kind of brioche yeasty character, and oak that's not evident. And so I started to experiment with how we would make Chardonnay. And this is made in a very, very unique way. I saw the question come in, is it oaked or unoaked? I'm glad you have to ask the question. It is 100% barrel fermented in brand new French oak, but only for 4 days. That's all the time this wine spent in a barrel, just to get to the peak of its fermentation. And then I take it out and I age it for 11 or 12 months on its, in concrete, actually, in a big concrete tank. And you see the moniker Shale and Stone on the wine. These grapes are grown in old decomposed shale soils down in Carneros. It's a true Chard vineyard, and then aged in concrete or stone. And so that's how we get Shale and Stone. And the result is very much more like a Chablis style Chardonnay, if that's the style you like. and certainly the style I like and what we're trying to do at Frog Sleep. Hope you're enjoying it. So any feedback on the Chardonnay? Any questions about it?
So we actually do have a question on Facebook from Steven asking what your view is on the alcohol levels being so high. This is probably going back a little bit to your organic, farming methods, but he did want to talk about that.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And restraint on our label. I mean, it's the second word on our label, balance restraint, right? Well, restraint comes in a large part with the alcohol content. But let's explore why alcohol contents have been getting so high, particularly in California wines. And I attribute a lot to the advent of irrigation. I use the analogy, we all know what a tomato tastes like from grandma's garden, right? One is grown in soil and has that deep tomato flavor. And we all know what tomatoes taste like that we have to get at the supermarket this time of year that are hothouse grown or grown hydroponically and so on. So they just don't develop the same level of flavor. Well, what do you do with a tomato that doesn't have much flavor? Well, you leave it on the vine longer, or you pick it and put it on your counter, hoping it gets a little more tomato flavor. And when we started irrigating grapes, that didn't take long for the grapevines to say, oh, the water's up there, up came the roots. So they were essentially becoming hydroponically grown. They weren't developing the same level of flavor. So winemakers, when this started happening, would go out to the vineyard and taste the fruit and go, well, this doesn't have enough flavor. So what was their answer? Was to leave it on the vine longer and longer and longer, hoping to develop more flavor. But then the sugar content goes up and sugar becomes alcohol. And so we've seen the alcohol contents of California wines and a lot of wines in general go from what used to be 11 or 12%, typical of our wines, up to 13, 14, 15, 16% is now not unusual in a lot of red wines. And it's because they're leaving them out there hoping to get more flavor. It doesn't occur to them not to irrigate their vines. And they've gotten so high that they've actually had developed machines to get some of the alcohol out. We think that the natural, by growing our grapes without irrigation, they develop flavor. And so our alcohol contents are much lower, often 1% to 2% lower than a typical California wine. And it's not because we're picking them unripe. It's because they develop flavor so much earlier because, like that tomato, they were grown in real dirt. I hope that explains it a little bit better.
It just reminds me that we have that like 3 seasons out of the year, the stale tasting tomato over here in New Hampshire.
Well, and that's why we can tomatoes and freeze tomatoes and right.
We find other ways to eat them.
Well, in our case, we can put it in a bottle. No, you're absolutely right, Shannon.
We do have another question about dry farming, actually.
Yeah.
And it is regarding what happens when you experience a drought in California, how that affects vineyards.
Well, that's a very pertinent question, and because that's exactly what we had last year. We only got 14 inches of rainfall. First of all, Napa is not a small rainfall area. We typically get 30 to 35 inches of rain a year, not unlike you guys. We are a Mediterranean climate, meaning that it comes all in the wintertime, and then it's dry from April till this time of year. We just got our first rainfall 2 nights ago since last winter. And so it is a Mediterranean climate. So you've got to store that water in the soil. That's where a lot of organic matter is important in soil. A healthy pound of soil will hold 10 pounds of water. Okay. So it's a gigantic sponge. So look at you can see that moisture is getting trapped in that soil in this slide. So that's very critical to what we do. But when we get so little rainfall, less than half of what we typically get last year, it can start to influence how much fruit we leave on the vine. And so we decreased our yields last year to minimize the load on the vines. That is very unusual that we have to do that. As it turns out, that it turned out to be a great benefit last year because with so little crop, the grapes ripened very early. And most of you remember we had the wildfires last year. We were so fortunate because we had thinned so much. Our grapes were mostly picked before the wildfires came. So a little bit of a hidden benefit. We were very lucky with that. So typically our yields are full, but in a drought year, we have to reduce our yields slightly to accommodate for that. Very, very good question though. I'm loving these questions. You got a pretty sharp group out there, Shannon.
I know. I told you.
I guess these people up in New Hampshire, you just sit around and thinking you're good stuff to ask winemakers. I love it.
Yes, we know how to enjoy a good drink. So So we do actually have some interest in, I'm not sure what next bottle you were going to do, tasting on, but there was some interest in talking a little bit more about the Granite Red.
Yeah, well, I was going to taste the Cabernet, but let's do it that last, because let's open up the Granite Red here, and which is very easy to do. I hope you all appreciate that we bottled this with a screw cap, because we, when you're ready to drink, you don't want to have to fool around with it. So the Granite Red, we put a screw cap in it, made exclusively for the NHLC Power Buy program. What does that mean, Shannon? What does that mean, Lisa? This is a special wine we made just for New Hampshire.
Shannon, I don't think my video's on.
Oh,
it says that you.
Let me see.
Oh my gosh. Oh, hey, first of all, there's a picture up of the guys picking the grapes, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that. There's a lot of misconception about our labor situation out here. The men and women who work for us in our vineyard are all full-time employees. They all have health benefits, 401ks, and they're part of the family just as much. And so these are the same guys that prune these grapes, and they're family to me. My son works with them every day, and this is awesome. And so, we talk a lot about sustainability at Frog's Leap, and part of that is the social equity side. The 3 E's of sustainability are, of course, economic vitality. If you don't have any money, you're out of business. So that's no good. But then environmental responsibility, which we can talk all night about that. And I'd love to get into climate change just a little bit. But then we don't think so much about the social equity side of things. And that's become a huge component of what we believe in at Frog's Leap. And a big part of that was when not using migrant workers or temporary workers, but instead establishing full-time career positions in our viticultural operations. A big part of that was diversifying our agriculture a little bit. So we grow not only grapes, but peaches, pears, figs, apples, cherries, veg crops, etc. So we've diversified our farming system, and that allows us to have crops year round, which allows us to keep our workers employed year round. And it's great for us. We have skilled laborers year round. And of course, it's great for them because of steady income and health and benefits and so on. This is very, very important on the social equity side of things as well. So good to see the guys working there. By the way, if you don't get any romantic ideas about picking grapes, there's nothing romantic about that part of the job. I can tell you. If you ever pick grapes, Lisa,
All right. So are we ready for the Granite Red? I'm excited.
I am so fired up about this wine. I'm excited, and I think I'm going to have you ship me back a couple cases of it, Shanna. I swear to God, this wine is delicious. Can I tell you? I'm not at liberty to disclose the blend on this, mainly because I ripped up the sheet and I don't hardly remember myself. But this wine is based on an unbelievable vineyard planted in 1942 of Kernan, a variety that we don't farm so much of here in Napa anymore. And this actually came from a vineyard up in Mendocino County. Can you imagine, planted in 1942 in the middle of World War II, some guy up in Mendocino County, well, Tom Rossetti's dad, went out and said, I think I'll plant some Kernan. And so here we are, this beautiful Kernan wine made from grapes planted in 1942. I mean, that's older than me, for goodness sakes, which is saying something. I did slip a little Cabernet Sauvignon into this just to give it a little extra color and a little extra punch, because the winters can get cold there in New Hampshire, and I thought you guys needed just a little extra punch in this wine. But that was my secret sauce in this wine. But the wine basically is made from these beautiful old Kernan wines, and I'm just loving this wine. It's not a huge body, but it's just got a lot of flavor, and I'm fired up. I might have to have you send me some of this, Shannon.
Okay, I'll be on the lookout for it. Now, what was the intention with putting that together for New Hampshire?
Well, wineries always have special lots of things here and there. And actually, I was having a dinner with some of my friends from Martinetti, our distributor in New Hampshire, and they said, "Hey, New Hampshire's got this Power Buy program. You got anything special in the cellar that we could propose to them?" And I said, I have just the thing. I had made this wine on kind of because I was excited about these grapes, but we didn't have enough of it to really launch it commercially at Frog's Leap. And I said, let me put this together and see what they think about it. And you guys said, yeah, that'll work for us. And so it was really just serendipity more than anything. And I think that's really, what you guys can do with the in New Hampshire is you have this chance to go out and scout out these kind of little rare and special wines that wineries have, and then buy them all up. And you're the only people in the whole country that gets to try this wine. Damn it! So
I do feel really blessed with the amount of variety. And honestly, I need to get out and get some of this Granite Red because I haven't sampled it yet. But first thing, I've got a liquor store 2 minutes down the road, and I want to try it.
Lisa, call them right now. They can deliver it while you're on the Zoom call here.
Lisa is actually from our Zoom call, and she is asking how it compares to a full body Cabernet. She really enjoys a full bodied red.
Yeah, well, we're going to have the Cabernet next, and you'll just see the extra profundity that comes into well-aged Napa Cabernet Sauvignon. I mean, this is a full-bodied wine. Don't get me wrong, but it just doesn't have the profound layers that you would get in a Cabernet Sauvignon. But on the other hand, this is what, a third of the price, or roughly, or half the price. And so, every now and then 2 bottles will make up for one, in certain moments. So it's all about value. And honestly, I think for drinking pleasure, you gotta have wines that you can drink during the week. And this is one of those. Not all of us can pop out a, $60 or $70 for a bottle of wine every single night. And so you need wines like this that are a little bit more affordable, still delicious, still wonderful, still go great with food, still made, aged in oak for 2 years, French oak, still made in a very traditional way, but just a little fuller, just a little less profound, basically, than the Cabernet Sauvignon. We'll try the Cabernet Sauvignon here in a minute. Yeah.
Everyone seems to be really excited about it. I think it's probably because it's close to home for us. So Joanne is curious, what made you choose that specific grape variety for the wine?
Well, this grape variety kind of chose New Hampshire almost, is what I would say, is that we actually buy some grapes from this vineyard to make rosé. And I was up in the beautiful vineyard, and they had leftover grapes in this vintage. This is the 18 vintage. And we bought the grapes to make rosé. So our rosé at Frog's Leap is made from the same vines. But I said, well, would you leave those a little longer so I can make a red wine? And they said, we'll save 10 tons for you. So we made this as an experiment, basically. And then of course, I was so excited to make it. And then I said, what the hell am I going to do with this? And that's when Craig and Chris Conrad and the folks at Martinetti said, hey, you got anything special for New Hampshire? And I said, that's how this all came together. So it really is serendipity in this case. Pretty cool.
Do you find that, doing that kind of trial and error is how you come across some of your greatest creations? Or just
it's a great question, Shannon. And even more important than that, it is how you keep your passion alive. I've been making wine for nearly 50 years. And, and believe me, I love our Sauvignon Blanc and I love our Chardonnay, but we're always experimenting. We make an unbelievable Zinfandel, and I'm sure New Hampshire has a great Merlot, a great Cabernet Sauvignon. We're going to try that next. And those are all fun, but I've been making these wines for 30, 40, 50 years. And so it's always nice to try something fun and something that you haven't worked with before, just to kind of keep the creative juices flowing in a way. And so, that's part of staying. It's like the chef who, if you just had to cook the same menu night after night after night after night after night, you're passionate about it. Don't get me wrong, and you want it to be great every single night. But a lot of chefs talk about, that's why they get so excited about their specials or what they do, that's seasonal, or just something came in, an ingredient came in that they hadn't had a chance to work with before. And they're so excited about those. And it's very much the same with winemakers, a chance to work with a different grape or a new vineyard or a special technique, or to be challenged in some way, is how we keep our creative juices going. And so I think it's probably the best. This is my special for the evening, from grapes that I just hadn't worked with before in this way.
Well, I'm excited that we get to benefit from it.
Yeah. What are people thinking of the wine?
Let's see.
I know
Oh, actually,
Craig
Tracy
Pierce, I
is
see, is
curious.
on the line. Craig, what do you think of this wine? I think we did a good job. Craig approved the blend before it even got to New Hampshire. So
Craig unfortunately cannot. He's on mute. He doesn't have the luxury I have to speak into the wine. But honestly, we're thrilled. We've been a fan of the rosé that you guys put out for years and years and years, and to see a Carignan in the red varietal, it's stunning wine. We were thrilled when you did the first time. What was that? 2 vintages ago. We gave it the first run, and I think this one is it's definitely showing beautifully, John. So thank you so much for giving us this.
Did you introduce yourself, Colin? You got to tell them what an important person you are for Frog Sleep in New Hampshire.
I'm registered as a panelist, but honestly, I'm just a fan. They let me be on this side of the table. My name is Colin. I work for Martinetti, so I'm the less important version of Craig Pierce and Chris Conlon.
I just promoted Craig. He has received a promotion.
So congratulations, Craig.
Oh my gosh. Now mute him, please.
Well, I have to agree with Colin and John. I think that the wine is spectacular, and we are so lucky to have it in New Hampshire. So you really need to get out there and buy a bottle or 2 or 3, because you may not get it again. I don't know if John will ever make this. And, you got to try this wine in its perfection right now. We have it throughout New Hampshire. So it's a part of our Power Buy program. And it's at an excellent price right now. And it would also make a great gift for any red wine lover in your family or your group of friends. But yeah, get out there. We've got plenty in the stores now. So take advantage of the time that it is in New Hampshire.
Yeah, absolutely. We've already sold 272 cases since it has landed. So it is extremely limited. There's still plenty of wine at this instant, but to Lisa's point, it's only going to last so long. So
hey, we're starting to sound like one of those infomercials. Better get it quick before it's
right.
all
I'm going to go back on mute.
But just to let everybody know, I mean, we have an awesome Power Buy program, and you can get up to 50% off wines from all over the world. It's not necessarily from California, but we are so lucky to have the wine that John has presented to us. And so check out our stores for the Power Buy program wines. There's some great deals out there.
Well, speaking of great deals, can I get everyone who's got some Cabernet? I'm going to pour myself some Cabernet right now, and I have our 2017 Cabernet Sauvignon. And look, I get excited about Carignan from Mendocino County, but I get even more excited about Cabernet Sauvignon from Rutherford. This is our number 1 wine. It's just so exciting to drink this. And Cabernet Sauvignon is such a wonderful variety, and Rutherford, where the winery is the single best place to grow Cabernet Sauvignon, certainly in this country and maybe the world. And yet, you want to make sure if you're having a wine from Rutherford that it actually smells like Rutherford. And I want to introduce the concept. On our label, we talk about the natural expression of the vine. In France, we refer to this as terroir, the idea that a wine has a character of place so distinct to that place that it couldn't be from anywhere else. And I think this is a unique concept in wine. And I think we all know a little bit about what we're talking about. We've all smelled or tasted something, there's the Cabernet, that reminds us of something from our childhood, a kind of candle our grandma had at Christmas time, or a gum that we used to chew. Or you guys know what I'm talking about, this kind of almost out of body experience where you smell something and it takes you back in time. Well, the best wines in the world have this power of terroir, this sense of place, this personality of where it's grown and made, that it literally transports you back to that place. And Cabernet Sauvignon and Pinot Noir are the 2 red grape varieties that are known to consistently produce these unique wines of place. And this should be the goal of any great winemaker, is to make these wines that have got a personality of the place, or have terroir. And this wine, if you've got it, if you don't have it, please go buy a bottle and smell so you can remember what I'm talking about. If you smell this wine and take the time to smell it, it has such a personality. We call it Rutherford Dust. If you look on the bookcase behind me, there's a picture of Andre Chelchev and John Daniel, the two people who probably more exemplify the idea of Rutherford terroir. My mentor, Andre Chelchev, talked about this signature aromatic character called Rutherford Dust. Here it is in spades. So you can't reproduce this anywhere else in the world. How exciting is that? And so every time you have this wine, you literally get a free plane ride to Rutherford because you're right back into the vineyard. For me, of course, this smells like home. And that's really a very, very special feeling. So this idea of terroir is not a bogus idea. It's a misused term, but it is it's the highest level of appreciating wines, is to identify wines with this unique character and then consistently be able to identify. That's the highest level of connoisseurship and the greatest gratification from drinking wines at this level. Now, wine can be drunk for a wide variety of other purposes, including just having a nice drink. But if you really get into enjoying wines, this is what you want to find, are these beautiful wines of terroir, these wines that have such a distinct character. And this wine has it so much in spades that it's not even funny. And that's why you buy wines, and you cost a little bit more. I won't fool you, but to me, this is well worth the price of being able to visit Rutherford with a smell and a taste. It's really special.
John, knowing that, is this your favorite of the entire collection?
You know, winemakers are not inclined to answer the question what their favorite is. We usually answer that by knowing what we have the most of in inventory.
Yeah.
And that rapidly becomes your favorite. It's kind of like having a bunch of kids. The one that's giving you the most trouble is the one you say is your favorite, trying to prop them up a little bit. So
The one that's
unreliable.
not in the room.
We're unreliable as advocates for our own wine. We're unreliable as to actually having a favorite, I'm afraid to say. But this wine has got the highest level of sophistication of all the wines here. But honestly, and I saw a comment earlier, someone said, you know, I've never had a Frog's Leap wine that didn't taste good or wasn't wonderful. And that's the highest compliment you can give me, is this consistency and this kind of familiarity along the whole, including the Granite Red. These are Frog's Leap wines. They have our signature. They have our personality. They have our energy. They have our complete passion. And that's all you can ask for in a wine, really. And is it Cabernet Sauvignon, or is it Sauvignon Blanc, or is it Zinfandel? You know, all those kind of, what are you drinking that night? You know, if I'm sitting down tonight and having something that should be going with Chardonnay, and I open Cabernet just because I want to open Cabernet, it's not going to be your favorite. You need to start thinking about how these wines go with the food that you're having as well. So I have a favorite every day, but not one that's consistently there.
John, that's actually a great segue, because someone on Facebook was actually asking what you would suggest pairing with Thanksgiving dinner, knowing that it's this week or next week.
It is. Well, and unfortunately, I'm going to speak to the one wine that we're not trying here, but I know is available in New Hampshire, and that's our Zinfandel. I think you guys have both the 17 and maybe the 18 now. Our Zinfandel, and the reason I say that is you think of Thanksgiving as being this kind of all-American sort of holiday, and you think of Zinfandel, even though it genetically is related to a variety from Croatia, but it's really its popularity and its name. Everyone thinks of it as kind of the quintessential California wine, and it is perfect for Thanksgiving as a red wine. And I would start with that Chardonnay, the Shale and Stone, and then switch over to Zinfandel, preferably in magnums for Thanksgiving. Although later on in the evening, when you've got some cheese open or something like this Cabernet wouldn't be a bad way to finish the evening, that's for sure. So I love my wines, and I drink them all the time, but I drink wines from all over the world as well. So I'll be trying a bunch of different things at Thanksgiving, you know, usually a magnum. Although our group is so much smaller this year, I don't really know what I'm going to do. It's, you know, we're all having to change, you know. Where I grew up, of course, Thanksgiving was 46 relatives with the cousins and aunts and uncles, and you know, everyone brought something, and we just don't do that so much, and certainly not this year. It's kind of sad. Yeah, but
No, it's definitely a unique year.
yeah, it's a unique year.
So we're not, but we still will require the magnums just to get through it.
Yeah, actually. Well, and I'm fond of saying that magnums are even an awkward size because it's a little too much for one person, but not enough for two. So it's an awkward size to say the least, but they're good. Yeah.
Well,
So
John,
what
if
if
you don't
people?
mind, I do need to introduce our 90 Days Around the World promotion, which is actually what we're talking with you about tonight. So what we're doing is, with this kind of crazy times with COVID, pushing everyone to these virtual avenues, we're encouraging and, asking some of our, wine geniuses and, our greatest whiskey distillers, and asking them to speak with us, and just present us with a really great presentation of your brands. I've had so much fun doing this so far, and I can't wait for what we have coming next. But during this 90 days around the world promotion, we're offering our viewers actually the chance to win some really amazing prizes. So grand prize is actually a $2,500 gift card to the New Hampshire Liquor and Wine Outlets. So not only are you actually going to get that gift card, you're also going to get some one-on-one guidance from our team of experts. So if you're interested in stocking your bar, your at-home bar with wines, you can speak directly with Lisa Gosselin and have her help you select exactly what wines you want to include in that at-home bar. Obviously, including Frog's Leap as well.
I think almost exclusively, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So entering for the chance to win is super simple. You just need to head to your app store and download the Scavify app. That's spelled Scavify. You can find all the details regarding the app on our 90daysaroundtheworld.com website. But every event, we're offering up a code word. And the more points you earn by entering these code words into this app, the bigger the prizes that you're going to be entered to win. So make sure that you're joining us for all of our events and you're obtaining that code word. Tonight's code word is actually 2 words, and it is estate grown. So again, tonight's code word is estate grown in honor of John and Frog's Leap tonight. So John, it sounded like you might have had one more wine to taste with us tonight.
Well, I think I've run through them. We had our Sauvignon Blanc, so crisp and fresh and lively, and I'm going to go back to that in a second. Of the Shale and Stone Chardonnay, is just, I hope you guys appreciate the style of that Chardonnay, because I'm not a big fan in general of California Chardonnays. And then we had the Granite Red, which is only available in New Hampshire. But I have now poured myself Cabernet Sauvignon, estate grown. What does it mean to be estate grown? It means that you grew every grape in this bottle, and I mean 100% of the grapes in this bottle. And actually, most of our wines are estate grown, but we really call it out on this Cabernet Sauvignon, because then I can literally, when you come, I can take you and show you the vines that this comes from, and that's this whole part of having an identity or having a sense of place. Very, very critical. So estate grown is something to really look for on wines. It's a huge commitment on the winery's part. And in a year like this, when our crop was much lower, we're not going to make as much wine. So that comes with the territory of being estate grown. You can't go out and buy some wine or some grapes from somewhere else. So it really has a big meaning and important wine. And
John,
I was talking.
Go back to the importance that your team places on maintaining that organic, dry farming of just having that all inclusive, every grape coming from your vineyard.
Yeah, it goes beyond that, actually, Shannon, and this whole idea of sustainability. And we could talk about this. Believe me, and I would love to talk about this all night. The idea that it goes beyond. I mean, you can grow your grapes organically and you're not using chemicals, but where do your farm workers live? How much power are you using? What are your buildings made out of? What about your watershed? Is there biodiversity in your farming system? What are you doing about climate change? All these things become questions that become very, very important when you start to think about sustaining yourself for subsequent generations. And not to get political or anything, but climate change, I believe, is a really fundamental and existential crisis to humanity, just not the wine industry. And we are starting to see it more and more. We live in the most beautiful and idyllic place on earth, and yet the ravages of environmental degradation and climate change are already obvious to us here in this beautiful place. And all we really needed was the evidence was the wildfires that we had both in 2017 and then this year in 2020. We've many people who are not going to be able to make a Cabernet Sauvignon this year because of these wildfires. So this is getting real, and it's not just a problem for California. I know I was not too long ago, I was in Florida about a year ago, and the Uber driver's taking me back after a winemaker dinner, and he says, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Well, I'm from California." He said, "Oh, California." He says, "That's where you have all that climate change." And I went, "Well, yeah, you're so lucky not to have any in Florida." He says, "I know, that's why everyone's moving here." I hate to tell you guys, climate change is coming to all of us, and it's really a problem that we all need to be focused on and be doing something. So take this from me. I hope you love my wines, but if you're not doing anything, do just something. If you're doing a little bit, do a little bit more. And if you are doing a lot, which I commend you, and we're certainly there with you, let's find new ways to challenge ourselves. This is something we should all be working on and thinking about. So there you go. That's my little pitch for being a little bit more responsible, all of us, for what's coming in terms of climate change and seeing what we can do, not accepting that this has to be a certainty, that we can all work on this a little bit together. And if we all did just a little bit more, we would have a much better chance of turning this thing around, which I think is so important for future generations, including ours. Sorry, not to get off on a subject here, but I had to get it in there.
John, I have the ability to mute you at any point, so just keep that. No, I'm just kidding. So we do have a couple more questions regarding just wine and your winery. If you want to just, answer those. So we do have a question coming from Facebook about if you're currently open for winery tours and tasting events, obviously with the COVID environment that we live in right now.
Well, we are, but we just, it's a real serious issue out here. So we cannot have guests inside our tasting room facilities now. We're very fortunate to have these beautiful, expansive porches. And so we often people taste out there, and we have a table set out in our beautiful garden. And the weather is very nice here right now. And so we're accepting guests, but very few people are traveling right now. It's actually a wonderful time to be, if you can get here, it's a wonderful time to be in Napa. There's no one here. Our restaurants are desperate for business. And usually this time of year, we're very crowded. Yeah, we're open for business, but we're getting very few guests right now. We've been, that's why it's so important for people to get to their wine stores and help us out, or joining our fellowship. We have a wine club called the Fellowship of the Frog. It is I can't even tell you how fun this group of people are. They sustain us. We have about 4,000 or 5,000 people who are regular, what we call them Frog Fellows, and they're hugely important to us. And so that's sustaining us. Obviously, New Hampshire, you guys are sustaining us right now because we just don't have the same level of visitors. But if you can get here, it's very cool to be here right now. It's absolutely gorgeous, and it's fall. We're getting our colors now. You guys got them a month ago.
Yeah, they're unfortunately all on the ground at this point.
Yeah.
But they are pretty when they're on the trees.
Oh, nothing beats it. Yeah.
Yeah, you are kind of from our neck of the woods, so you.
Yeah, a similar kind of country. Yeah, lots of cows.
This is true. All right. Well, let me just make sure. Pretty sure we've covered pretty much every question so far. John, if it's okay with you, we like to have you collect anyone's questions in the Facebook window or the Zoom chat as well. And if you wouldn't mind, if I can send those over to you via email, and we can just paste those responses right back in the Facebook window.
Well, we'll see how many there are. If there are not too many, I'll try to get to as many of them as we can. The code word tonight, by the way, was estate grown. Okay, I just saw that question come up on chat. So there you go. Yeah, absolutely. And look, reach out to us on Instagram or through our website. And there are no secrets at Frog's Leap. We are passionate about what we're doing. We are making great wine, as you're tasting, hopefully tonight. We believe passionately in the environment and social justice. So kind of, we believe the wines of the future are going to be judged as much by the values of the wineries that produce them than by the number of points that they get from some wine critic or how fancy their art collection is. And honestly, I think this is something you guys have power over. And when I say you guys, I'm talking about everyone who's listening in. The consumer has the ultimate power here. Even the New Hampshire Liquor Commission, they're listening to you. They're not listening to me. I can go try to sell them wine every day. But when you go in and ask for a wine or say, hey, how come you don't have more organic wines, or tell me about how these grapes are grown, they're paying attention to that. And that'll make a big difference out there. So think about the values of the wineries of the wines that you're drinking. Think about their values, how they treat their workers, et cetera, how they treat the environment. And by voting with your dollars, you can make a huge difference and enjoy better wines, in my opinion, as well. So I really challenge you to think about that. And in challenging you, I'll challenge myself to keep trying to do better as a winery, to join you in the cause of being more socially equitable, more environmentally conscious, and combating this existential threat of climate change. We guarantee you we're going to be doing that one way or the other.
Well, thank you for joining us, John. We've had so much fun tonight. I know that just based off comments that I've received in Facebook chat, Zoom, that everyone has been loving tasting along with you. And just overall, New Hampshire just seems to really love Frog's Leap.
Well, and I love New Hampshire, and I'm going to be thinking about the next Granite Red here pretty soon. And we'll find something good for you guys in the future. And right now I have 4 bottles of wine, only partially drunk. So my evening is cut out for me here. And my poor dog is ready to go home. And but it has been a blast. You guys are the best. To all my friends at Martinetti, thank you guys for hooking us all up. And I can't wait to visit you again. I always look for the Winter Wine Festival to be part of that. And we're missing that this year. And but I'll be back. And when I am, I want everyone to come up to my table and say, hey, we had fun at that tasting, and let's have a glass of wine together. So thank you guys so much. Please keep supporting Frog's Leap. I need the money. I told you about how far in debt I am. And check out the Fellowship of the Frog too on our website. I think there might be a few of you out here that would really enjoy being part of that as well. And thank you, Lisa, Shannon, all of you so much for having me tonight. It's been a blast. Let's keep doing this. Let's do it again tomorrow night. I'm not doing anything.
Right. Same time, same place. We'll see you then.
Same time, same place. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much, John. It was great. And you're so knowledgeable. And thank you for sharing your passion for your wines to all the people in New Hampshire, because we absolutely love your wines.
Well, thank you, Lisa. And you're a big part of our success here. So thank you.
All right. So for those of you still watching, if you enjoyed tonight's event, please be sure to pre-register on our 90daysaroundtheworld.com website. On Monday night, we're actually going to be joined by Knob Creek. We've got Tuesday night with Redemption Whiskey. So really great lineup coming for you in the coming week, the holiday week. So be sure to join us next week. And if you have any further questions for John, like I said, just leave them in the comments and we'll do our best to get all of those answered for you. And thanks again, John, for joining us. It's been so much fun, and have a great night, everyone.
All right. Good night, you all.
Good night.
Thank you.